Good evening. Welcome to the 5-8, where we discuss each of the week's 5 most fucked up topics for 8 minutes. 5 topics, 8 minutes, 2 hosts, a guest, some singing, a lot of curse words, and as many cocktails as we deem necessary. LB, how are you?
I'm okay. I'm happy I made it to Friday. How are you?
I'm fine. I thought Wednesday was Thursday, like the whole week, and that we had,
Yeah.
it's is everybody else having this problem with time?
Yes.
Not knowing what day it is, all this
Yeah.
kind of stuff. Yeah, it's not great as far as that goes. But
No. And it was we had a nice long weekend. We were with each other last Friday night. And then I don't know, I started driving at some point last week. I started driving and I did not stop driving for quite a while because there's been a lot of driving. So that also just sort of, I don't know, threw me off.
yeah,
Way too much driving.
That was last week. I feel like that was like a month ago.
I know.
Right? I guess that's how it is. But
I did manage to get a new computer, which I'm still setting up
okay.
before the tariffs, because I'm like, these tariffs are coming. Better buy that computer.
They're coming, or they're not. Who can
Or
say?
they're not.
Who can say? Now we tariff, now we don't. Now we tariff, now we don't.
No, we don't.
He can't make up his mind. He has no mind to make up. But
Oh,
I'm very
God.
excited. Did you know that the stock market soared and rallied for the biggest gain in one day since World War II? Did you know that?
Oh, my God.
Oh, my
I think
God,
it was
so
in
wonderful.
an hour. Yeah, in 1 hour.
Wow, it's amazing. You destroy the market and then restore it by,
I don't know that it's restored. I don't think
it's not.
Yeah.
It's not restored.
Yeah.
It's not restored.
It's not restored.
Yeah. I don't even know. I've been trying to come up with the right analogy and I can't quite summon
A
it.
rigged slot machine. That's the right analogy. We're in the casino. And the problem with this casino gangster that's running rigging it all and making his house the house and using the stock exchange as the cashier is he bankrupts casinos.
He does. That's it.
He
Up
tends
is
to
down, down is up.
bankrupt
Plural. It's
Yeah.
very, very strange. Maybe Tariff is the name of one of his casinos maybe that was the one he was going to build in Australia that he wound up not being allowed to build.
Right, because of
it's the Trump tariff. That's
a good name for a Trump casino.
It
Tariff.
is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Put the accent on the second syllable. It's Tariff. It sounds very exotic. It's a lot of fun.
Well, maybe when he was talking about running away again today. I don't know if anybody caught that, but we'll get into it. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
He was just like, I don't know. They might come after me. It could be bad. I've got all these law firms in my pocket now. Thank God. Oh, God.
Well, all of this pivots very nicely into our first topic.
Okay. So you want to get started? It's good to see you, by the way. It's good to see everybody. The clock is on. Inside Traders.
Inside Traders,
I mean, Greg, this was so blatant. There's so much just in everybody's face now because who's going to do anything about this? Who is going to do anything about this blatant insider trading?
No one. I mean, they didn't do anything about it, like even in the good times. The SEC was pretty toothless. And now I think it's being run by the Count from Sesame Street fame. I don't think he's very good at the job. I don't think he's up to the task.
Oh my God.
I mean, just to put it in perspective, in case we're watching this months in the future.
Right. Okay. Help us.
He made the announcements that all these tariffs were going to happen based on some formula that I don't know where he found the formula from. If it was the Doge kids, or I don't know, maybe he found his old trigonometry notebook from somewhere and goofed on the symbols. So he announces all this stuff and then very predictably pulls it back. Oh no, we're not gonna do it after all. Yeah, everybody came to me and we worked out a deal or whatever. We're not gonna do it. And he puts on his Truth Social, now is a good time to buy, before he announces this.
Right. And then there's a SPY index. There's an index that sort of, it's about before he made the public announcement that he was backing off all these tariffs, that index went off the charts. So people had the information clearly, probably some big funds, some big money managers. Folks had the information.
Maybe the guys in his office that he was saying
Maybe
he
the
made
guys in
nine
his
hundred
office
million
were
dollars.
calling their
Maybe that guy.
people and saying, so
Yeah.
that's why folks want that, the people who know what they're looking at want an investigation into this. No one's going to do it. I have my own personal theory about how this all went down.
Oh yeah. What's your theory? Because this is good.
Okay. So this is this is my theory, my personal theory. There's some reporting. This is not my theory. This is the reporting. There's some reporting that Carney, Prime Minister of Canada right now, had gotten Europe, several countries in Europe, if not the European Union, and Japan together in like an alliance, like we're on Survivor. And he got them on the phone, and they were all aligned to stand up to this. And I guess their position was, go right ahead, dude. Go right ahead. Knock yourself out. We're going to survive this with each other. And we don't need you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Good luck to you. So that was a very strong, firm position. They had their alliance. It's like a Mark Burnett show. He's still producing this, but it's turning. And so that reporting was going on. And if you remember, then I look back and I was like, oh, remember just a couple of days ago, right before Trump was saying when he was in the tuxedo, you made the comment privately of who he reminded you of.
Oh, he was like when Joe Piscopo used to do Frank Sinatra on SNL, like circa 1982. Like that's what he looked like.
Like,
I mean, hey, I was like, how is this guy out in public like this?
Oh God, he's in his stupid tux. And he's saying, they're all calling me and kissing my ass. You can't believe it. And it's like, okay, number one, I don't believe you because you lie. But also that braggadocio, that offensive defensiveness, right? Of like, oh, I got this all under control. Everybody wants me, I guarantee you that's because those countries were aligned and that European Union were aligned. That continent were like,
yeah.
And so, he had to, I think the insider trading where there may be some allegedly, it certainly looks that way, plenty of evidence, was, okay, well, I'll just make the people that are been yelling at me and screaming all around and are causing this thing, because I do believe he still truly believes in tariffs because he was fed that garbage from the Kremlin. We know this. He came back from his 1987 trip to the Soviet Union, to the Kremlin, and had two things on his agenda. And one was tariffs and the other was destroying NATO. And he's never gotten off of that. And I don't think he can admit to himself that he got manipulated by spies that knew a lot more than he did about the way the world works. And he's just, and they've been using him ever since. And he knows that. All of that been proven out ad nauseum over the last 10 years.
Right.
But so I think it was just like, okay, I'll just make these fuckers rich, right? And get them off my back. And then they'll have to kiss my ass. And then everybody will think I'm a genius. Right? That's my story about how that all went down. I don't know that from the outset it was, we're going to rig this thing. I think he's a true believer in the garbage that the Kremlin sold him, and he's embarrassed himself for decades now with the New York, high big money people and the international money community of all these people. He's always wants their approval, and he wants to, all these rich, incredibly rich people. He was never that wealthy, not as wealthy as them. Now he certainly has tremendous wealth because he's siphoning it, apparently.
Yeah. Well, that's
right. But these folks have always laughed at him. They've never included him. They don't want, it's always been, and they're using him. And then they got angry at their little clown monkey for playing, doing his tariff thing that he's been talking about for 40 years.
Right.
That's what I think happened. I think Canada, I think those people, our neighbors stood up to him. Our former allies stood up to him, and he had no choice but to back down. And in the process of backing down, just decided to make people really rich so that they would love him again, because he was feeling the non-love.
Yeah.
He was feeling the hatred. He was feeling the rejection. He was feeling the action, people stop sucking up to him. And he was actually back into that thing where he just repels everybody, not just because he has an actual stench that repels people, but
although he does.
That's what I'm saying. Not just the actual stench, the stench and the aroma coming out of his emptiness.
Yeah. Yep.
That people don't want. The weirdness.
I think, when he says things, to your point, when he says things like, they're all calling me kissing my ass, what that means is that they're all calling him not doing that. If they're calling him at all, they're calling him and saying, hey buddy, we're going to really hurt you economically. Yeah. We, your, closest economic allies, if you don't, repent. And, I'm not so sure that they weren't all in from the beginning to just make the money on it. It's some of these financial shenanigans are hard to, think about, at least for me. I'm like, wait, how does this work with the money laundering and the this and the that? But that, saying we're going to do tariffs, and then the market drops, and then everybody buys back in, and then or whatever. And then you say, oh, wow, no more tariffs. I changed my mind. The market goes back up, and then you sell. Like, it's obvious that's how it works.
Yeah. I think even though it's such a simple con, I still think it's beyond his grasp.
That also could be. Also could be. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with China, because he's still playing hardball with China. And I'm just going to go, spoiler alert, China's going to kick his ass. Okay. So he's got no chance here. Oh, so God. I wonder if this time next week, there will be no more tariffs on China, or it'll come back down. I don't know.
I don't know.
I have no idea.
I don't know. I don't know. We'll find out.
Okay.
We'll find out.
Moving along.
All right. Moving along. I don't know if there's anything else. There's nothing else to say about the tariffs, right? We're just going to move along. What can we say?
They're dumb. I mean, David Frum made a good point about it.
That's what you wanted to say.
Yeah. He had a good thread about it, that, why it was both obviously dumb and less obviously dumb is like that people are buying treasury bonds, and he wants them not to do that. Like, what? It makes no sense. Like, nothing that he's doing makes any economic sense, which you can tell, because all of these people who really, really want to defend him cannot figure out how to do it. The only people that can do it are like Navarro and the press secretary, who just, will just say anything, and call it a victory kind of thing.
Well, because when it comes to money, there's nothing open to interpretation there. You're either in a good position or not. Your dollar's either strong or it's not. The markets. So when you're saying make America great again, and then doing everything you can to damage it financially, that's where the rubber meets the road. Socially, we can't figure these things out. Constitutionally, we've been so weaponized and, had our brains scrambled and turning meaning inside out and up and down. And like when it comes to the Constitution, that people can't seem to figure that out now either, which we're going to get into. But money?
Yeah.
Pretty straightforward. All right, let's go on to the next topic.
Now, as you know, you and everybody watching the show who watches regularly, we've been talking about the idea of Trump coming in and seeking vengeance on those he perceives as his enemies, which means that basically anybody that ratted him out for being a criminal the first time around, or tried to, check his horrific impulses and stuff like that. And Kosh Patel made lots of comments to the effect that there was, that this is what they were going to do. I think Pam Bondi kind of did, hinted at the same thing. There doesn't seem to be much question that, Trump is a vindictive bastard. Like, if you know anything about him at all, that it's a core part of his personality. So it's been interesting and scary to watch how he's gone about doing this. So this week it came out, there's two people that he does not like from the first term. One is Chris Krebs, who was either in charge of or worked for the cyber security unit, and kind of was outspoken around around the 16 election and stuff like that, and the lack of cybersecurity that maybe we had. And then Miles Taylor, who worked in the Department of Homeland Security. And remember, there was that writer who was anonymous, and everyone was trying to figure out who
Oh yeah,
anonymous
that's
was.
right. Who
He
wrote
was
the
anonymous.
op-ed?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was him. And Trump hates shit like that. So now he has signed an executive order for the DOJ to go after them, to find something to charge them with and investigate everything that they did while they were working in government, and I think beyond, to try to find something to hit them with and charge them with. So this is highly, highly illegal. I mean, Biden could not call Merrick Garland and be like, hey, the guy that did the insurrection, maybe we should arrest him. He didn't do that, because you don't do that because you don't want the perception of.
Is it illegal, or is it just a norm?
I think it's just a norm. No,
I think it's just a norm. Yeah.
And why didn't they do it? Well, we don't want to set the precedent, and then they'll come in and do it. Well, guess what? Like everyone predicted, they came in and are doing it anyway. So that was not worthwhile.
Yeah.
Now, will anybody, what will happen at the DOJ? Are they really going to find people that want to get these guys? Will they find anything? Probably nothing, probably not. But they're going to have to get lawyers. They're going to have to worry about it.
Right.
It's clearly a big disruption to their lives. And for what? Because they're trying to protect America from Trump and his Kremlin-y bullshit, right? So that's going on. Also, they're starting to really go after anybody that doesn't toe the party line. And the party line meaning whatever Trump and I guess Vance and Musk happen to be thinking at any given moment. So they fired the head of the Space Force base in Greenland, Susan Myers. I forget what rank she is. I apologize. But they fired her because after Vance went there, trying to look all tough guy in his parka, right? Riding as if on Hoth, the ice planet, and everybody in every picture basically scowling at him. She posted something to the effect of, "Hey, Denmark, we're still here. We're still working with you. We're all cool," which is what the policy is of the United States and what we've been doing for the last God knows how long. And they didn't like that because they felt like it made Vance look bad.
She didn't say thank you.
She didn't say thank you.
Yeah.
She made Vance look bad, which I don't know. I think it should be Vance. He doesn't need anyone's help to look bad.
No.
I guess is the thing. But and we're worrying about this. And then on the other side is the due process stuff. With Roberts and these cases before SCOTUS and them taking people and disappearing them, and they wind up in El Salvador, and they're like, sorry, can't get them back.
Oh man, yeah.
Now they're in a fight right now because the DOJ, they've sent Kilmar Abrego Garcia to El Salvador wrongly, and they've admitted that it was wrong. And the judge is like, you need to get his ass back here. And they're like, yeah, we can't do it in a short period of time.
So
how can we possibly just get someone from El Salvador and fly them to Washington? How could we do such a thing? It's very complicated to do that. So
I'm very worried.
It's terrifying because it's getting to the point where, in addition to him personally, obviously, it's getting to the point where, okay, now it's people who are here legally. There's people who have done nothing wrong. There's people who are here on student visas. They're going through and getting, they're trying.
There are people who are born here. There's a woman who's like, I'm an immigration attorney that was born here.
Mm-hmm.
And I just got a deportation thing.
It's
frightening. If you don't mind, did you have something else you wanted to say?
No.
Okay, I wanted to add in. So I was just caught Nicole Wallace's show before today, and she had the judge on whose son was killed. Remember, there was like a pizza. The guy posed, and he came to the door, and he shot for retribution against her, and he shot and killed her only child, her son. And so she was on Nicole Wallace talking about how the judges are now getting threats. And one of the latest trend in the threats, because of course it's probably some online stalker group, they get together in their forums and they come up with their plots and their schemes. And, these are just keyboard warriors. They think it's funny, but also they mean it, and it's dangerous playing around with threats and things. And so now judges that are identified by Alex Jones and these others as being these, enemies of whatever, right? These are liberal judges or whatever. This is the far right. Yeah, it's the far right. It's not even far right. It's just a Republican now, like MAGA sphere. And so they're sending pizzas to judges' houses under her son's name as a threat, and probably laughing about it. Because these personality disorders behind these characters are just, they think it's trolling, but it's sending the message of, we know where you live. And now the latest escalation is they're sending the pizzas under her murdered son's name, as if he's the one who sent them, to the adult children of judges that they don't like rulings, that have been identified as, liberal judges. And so threatening, so that we know where you live, and we also know where your children live. And I find her very compelling when she's talking about, her son and what her son meant to her, and what this must be like for them to have their son, who was just beautiful young man and all about love and peace. And, he's now being used as a way to threaten her colleagues.
Yeah, that's awful.
Awful. So the only silver lining in some of these things is it's been very, very difficult to get people in positions of power that can do something about it to understand how dangerous this, not just the cult and the domestic terror threat within MAGA, but the kinds of minds that get targeted and turned into these trolls, these online trolls, when they start stalking people, when they start aggressing, they have a personality type, but they can't let it go. And to them, it's a stimulation. They think it's funny. They love it. Becomes their life to obsess over harassing an individual that they're targeting, and they will never let that go. They can't let it go. It's been very, very difficult. I know for a couple of folks that have been trying to get judges to take the cases seriously, to allow them to find out who these people are that are anonymously stalking them or harassing them and this sort of thing. And the judges have just been like, what are you talking about? Just get over it. It's not that, you need to get offline. You're too involved with being online. It's not that big of a threat. It shouldn't upend your life. I'm not hearing this case. I don't understand it. Unfortunately, now they're starting to understand it because they're becoming the targets. And if there's any silver lining, it might be that we're going to be able to hopefully do something about this, this scourge in our society. Yeah. That didn't exist before. It didn't. Yeah.
I don't know. This is a good segue into our guest.
It is a good segue into our guest.
But before we do that, we have I guess this is a sponsor,
I don't know. This is an ad that's been running. Let's talk about it.
Okay. There you go. I don't know. It's very dramatic.
Very dramatic.
Very dramatic. I
Yeah,
apologize.
I mean, those ads are so dramatic,
They are. They're
and
ridiculous.
everywhere and becoming pervasive and strange.
Yeah.
But I appreciate that. Yeah, it's the days in the desert.
Yeah, that was the best one.
Yeah, that was the
That
best
was the
one.
best one.
The whole ad just about that. Okay.
Okay. Our guest is a journalist who's written for, among many other places, The Nation, Politico, New Republic, and Guardian. He's the managing editor of Inkstick Media. He's the author of 2 previous books on fascists and marauders, and his new book is called You Can Kill Each Other After I Leave: Refugees, Fascism, and Bloodshed in Greece. Patrick Strickland.
Patrick Strickland, welcome to the
Howdy.
5-8.
We want to
Thanks for
say
having me on. Yeah.
we want to say thank you. We know you're jet lagged because you've just come back from
Yeah.
Greece, or come stateside from Greece. So thank you for staying up and joining us. Now, you've spent a lot of time there, obviously, and a lot of, almost a decade or more, covering especially migrants. But what prompted you to write this book at this time?
Well, like you said, I had been reporting in the Middle East for about 4 or 5 years before I started following what became known as the refugee crisis. And um, around that time in 2015, I just started like amassing more and more stories that I didn't really know what I was going to do with them. So really the research in the book goes back to then, but I didn't start writing it till about 2018, and then I just stuck with it. So it wasn't really like I planned for this specific moment more than anything. I mean, there was a number of things.
You were just working towards it. It's
Just
I,
working
I have the book right here. I should show it. It's excellent. Even though it's about something very dark, I think you do a good job of just, kind of telling everybody what happened and who the characters are, and bringing the fact that there are people, that everybody involved with this are people and not, just names on a piece of paper or whatever. I think it's an important book, and obviously one that unfortunately has a lot to do with the United States right now. So the group that you cover is called the Golden Dawn,
Mhm.
which is this neo-Nazi group in Greece. And they kind of went from being a bunch of, sort of fringy thugs to now coming into a position of where they actually have seats in the government and stuff like that. So talk a little bit about who they are and the origin of the group and how it sort of came to be.
Right. Yeah. Well, now they're banned, but they
Good.
did begin in the 80s, sort of as a very small group of people. They're mostly not very widely known. They weren't even a political party at the time. In around 1985, they registered as like an association, so they weren't even formally a political party. In the 90s, they became a political party, and they started to become involved in nationalist protests and try to seize that as an opportunity, mostly at the time, to attack people on the left. And when I say attack, I mean physical violence. Um, Throughout that period, they really didn't do much electorally. It wasn't until Greece's economic crisis really plunged the country that they were sort of able to exploit resentment among 7 or 8% of the population to get enough votes to actually make it into the Greek parliament. But even then, they didn't abandon the street violence, and they were really, really effective at what they did in straddling both parliamentary politics and having a forceful street presence. And I think that's one of the reasons why they were important in that way and offered a blueprint to people on the far right elsewhere.
So it was an early, I mean, we've had neo-Nazis here for a long time. It's, that movement, and we saw it go through the 80s. We saw it go through the 90s. But it does feel like from what I've read of your writing on this, that Greece was just, maybe because of that economic collapse that they suffered and where they were geopolitically, was in this it's sort of an early uh, laboratory for what we can identify as the far right now, because I do think that the movements are, it's transformed itself into
Mhm.
a 21st century beast, that is global, that as much as they're all about their own borders, they seem to be borderless in terms of how they connect and support one another, as a sort of a global movement. So can you talk a little bit about and not just the economic difficulty they have, but in Greece, that helped give these guys some traction and help
Mhm.
them maybe organize themselves a little bit better, but and have a different strategies. But what happened with Syria? What
Oh, right.
happened when the refugees came in? Because I remember watching that and seeing those images and seeing the people of Greece just be like, oh my God, right? Because we're watching babies and families and these people who were just, these incredible Syrian refugees who were really, really fleeing and were
Mhm.
washing up on Greece. And it didn't look like they were met with like kind of where we're at now. So what happened? Am I reading that right? At that time, when the Syrian war was really raging and Greece was getting flooded with refugees, it did seem there was a
Mhm.
compassionate heart there. So what happened?
Well, really, the first wave of the most intense violence by groups like Golden Dawn took place between 2010 and 2013. And then in 2013, there began a legal crackdown on the party after one of its members stabbed and killed a Greek rapper, anti-fascist left-wing rapper named Pavlos Fysis.
Wow. Okay.
So there had been an astounding amount of violence against migrants before that, but really the authorities didn't act until a Greek person was killed. Now, in 2015, the refugee crisis, as it's called, began in the way we think of it now. I mean, it's something like nearly 1 million people crossed through Greece that year,
So
and
that was
most
2015.
that was 2015. Yeah,
Okay.
I know a lot of them. I mean, a very large number of them were Syrian, but there were people. I mean, I was there on the Greek islands on the Greek border with Macedonia, in Athens, Thessaloniki, all around the country. I mean, there were people who came from Iraq, Afghanistan. I met people from Yemen. I mean, there were people from really all over. I met people from various countries across Africa, Sudan at that time, Somalia, and you're right. There was a lot of solidarity, and at the time, I was very moved by the amount of humanitarian compassion I saw. But there was always um, this reality at the time that people weren't staying in Greece. Uh, they were heading towards Germany or Sweden or the Netherlands or Austria or wherever, somewhere further into Western Europe. In 2016, many countries across the Balkans sealed their borders, and basically, a large number of people were bottlenecked in Greece. At the time, there was a left wing government, but they made a number of policies that really, I think, fed the resentment among um, people on the right who would have already opposed the presence of refugees. Right? I mean, for one example, they made it so that people who were seeking asylum had to stay on the island they arrived on until they reached a certain point in their asylum process, which meant that the camps basically were, overflowing, and the conditions were really rough. And um, it was just kind of a grim but perfect set of conditions for people on the far right to exploit. And it wasn't just Golden Dawn. I mean, there were other groups too, and I don't think that there was ever a point when they were the only group carrying out violence. But yeah, I mean, at that time, really, it was like a gradual deterioration of that solidarity over the years. And to be sure, though, there's still a lot of people even today who, I think put their own necks on the lines for these folks who have had to flee war and whatnot.
The violence also, it doesn't seem to be just the refugees. There's also immigrants who come to Greece and work and have lived there for years and years, earning money to send back to, I guess Pakistan has a large population there, who are also the targets of violence. What the one of the big takeaways from the book is how, first of all, how just horrible the people are doing the violent acts. Just in the middle of the night, there's a lot of knives involved, and really just beating people over the head with things, and it's just bad from that standpoint. But also that there's no legal recourse. Like the police just either, if they're not participating in it on their off hours, are just like, yeah, we're not going to get involved with that. We're not going to bother. And it seems like there was a lot of attempts by people in the immigrant community to report things and get police reports even filed. And then we're told not to do so on threat of death and this and that. And I feel like this is something that, it's a sort of breakdown of rule of law, basically, that seems to have happened there. Has that recovered any in the last couple of years, or is it still like that? And do you see, what are the warning signs of that here? Because we here in the United States, we haven't hit that point yet, but if things continue apace, it's coming. So,
yeah, during that first really heavy period of violence, there were people who told me at police, somebody used to call the police, for instance, to complain about noise or whatever. Like if they had a Pakistani neighbor, they would call to complain about noise or something. And the police would say, "Oh, it's a migrant. You should call the local Golden Dawn office instead. They'll be faster than we are." And one of the reasons that people were scared to report hate crimes to police at that time, especially in that period from 2010 to 2013, was that they could go into a police station to report a hate crime and end up in the deportation system, or end up in a deportation cell, or even just have to spend time in jail. I mean, and people have told me many times, many people I spoke to, that they wanted to go file a police report, and they were told, okay, if you file this, you're at least gonna have to sit in a cell, which is just intimidation and deterrence. I mean, so that's really alarming stuff. I do think all of that still goes on to an extent, save for the part about suggesting people call Golden Dawn, because most of Golden Dawn is now in prison because they were convicted of operating a criminal organization. But
okay. I want to ask you about that. Go ahead, but I want to ask you about that. We'll come back to that.
But the violence, and I would say in some ways has moved from these fringe groups in the street to be something that is more predominantly carried out by, parts of the state, the Coast Guard, the police, and on the borders. So anti-migrant violence didn't go away. There's not, the same, what were effectively lynch mobs, nearly as often or even, very much at all now. But, it's almost more alarming to me that,
that the state is doing its own version of it.
The Coast Guard is abandoning people at sea, or, pushing them back into international waters or whatever.
Okay, so how was this extremist Nazi group? How were they stopped? What was what were the crimes? I know you said for killing, but how did that become a way to eradicate them as a criminal organization, identify them as a criminal organization, and then put them in jail? I'd like to know that path, even though there's still all that ethos going on now within the border, in the Coast Guard of the state.
Yeah, I believe in the end it was 68 defendants who were on trial. I think there was one more, but one passed away throughout that period, because it was like a 5-year trial. Different people face different charges, but the umbrella charge for all of it was the criminal organization charge, right?
So
And
were they laundering money? Were they just conspiring to murder? What was there to basically, it sounds like, a mafia family was taken down, right? So
that's what the trial was very much similar to, and I've heard lawyers say that it was sort of modeled off of like organized crime cases that were used against the mafia or mob. But yeah, I mean, so some of the charges, like for instance, there was murder, like I mentioned, the murder of the rapper Pablos Fisas. There were charges for attacks. Some of them were really brutal attacks on like these Egyptian fishermen whose homes were raided and while they were asleep, and they were beaten very brutally. There were weapons charges. There was all sorts of stuff.
What made the state that one prominent murder, and then it was like, okay, because the people are so upset about this, we're going to go ahead and investigate the group? Was it a response to that? Because it just doesn't sound like it was.
People, yeah, people were pissed. There were large protests and stuff, and that's one of the things that I think is really important when looking at why the state finally moved, is that there was always resistance to these people in the streets, to the far right, whether it's Golden Dawn or someone else, and that's true today, and that's something that I've always been really impressed with by the place, is that people are really active. And even back in 2015, like I can remember people putting their bodies in between people on the far right and those they wanted to attack. So there was a lot of public pressure, and eventually I think they just had to move, and it was maybe more self-preservation than anything else.
Okay. Then one other person we want. So let's say 2015 was when the big waves were coming in, right? 1 million people. 2 years before that, an American named Andrew Anglin was over in Greece cooking up the Daily Stormer, which our audience will know a lot about that. But there was an article written about him in 2017, The Making of an American Nazi, because he had become this he kind of got himself cooked up on Alex Jones, and then had this publication that he started with this hacker named Andrew Weave Auernheimer. And they were off and running with really igniting a far right movement. I did not realize that started in Greece, that he was in Greece. I know that he was in Russia right after that.
Yeah, I think he was floating around. Basically, whenever there was the lawsuit against him by the SPLC some years ago for the whole troll army and the anti-Semitic harassment and all that.
Right, which was run out of St. Petersburg, right? We found out, Yeah.
So I had looked in the court filings at one point, and I saw that he had included a document that said that he was a resident of this address in Athens. So I happened to be like 5 minutes from where I live. So I walked over there, and it was a hostel, and I talked to the guy who knew him there. And I mean, honestly, the guy was kind of shocked. He's like, no, he's not really a Nazi. And I was like, no, he really is. And then I showed him the cover of the Atlantic on my phone. He was like, holy shit, But from everything I gather, he was there blogging, doing what he did and writing the kind of stuff that he writes. And also, I think he built some contacts with folks in Golden Dawn, other places, other groups as well. I mean, I think there's a photo floating around of him at a Golden Dawn rally, actually.
Wow.
Still somewhere on the internet. So, and he's not the only one. I mean, Matthew Heimbach, like whenever he was interviewed on the Vice documentary about the Charlottesville violence, they asked him, who are you modeling, your protest off, and he mentioned Golden Dawn, and he mentioned the Swedish, the Nordic resistance movement in Sweden. So, I think these people inspire one another in really horrifying ways.
Yeah. Oh
Yeah.
boy. Okay.
It's not so fun.
So fun. I feel
there-
for you for having to spend any time, and I'm appreciative of that work. Very appreciative of your work. We just no other way to bear witness to this if we don't have journalists applying that craft to really pulling out the stories and helping us to understand what's actually going on. So very appreciative, Patrick.
Yeah, the book is really good. I'm going to show it again on the screen so people can see. You can kill each other after I leave, which is a very
Great
good title.
Yeah, great title.
Good title. So, is there anything now? I guess now that we're into we're 80 whatever days into this Trump second term.
Yeah.
Is there anything in your book that you wrote about before that now takes on new resonance looking around in the United States, I guess is what I'm getting at. Are there lessons that we can learn on the anti-fascist side of things?
Yeah. I feel like this second Trump administration is just a giant stamp of approval for border violence and hard borders all over the world, and that's really alarming. And I think I don't know what the I don't know the effective way to fight back against it, myself. Like I'm not an activist myself. I'm not, I don't protest or whatever, but I do try to document it. And I could say that it's a lot more confounding to try to think about what you do about a Coast Guard, throwing people into the sea or
Oh my God.
beating them or threatening them or whatever, or a government that puts a bunch of people on planes and ships them to a foreign prison. How to stop it, I don't know, but I think it'll take a lot. I think it'll take a lot of involvement from a lot of people, and I don't know if that answers your question. I kind of went on a tangent.
No,
Yeah.
it did a little bit. I think it's, the expression of it does feel overwhelming when the state itself that uses its tremendous powers to abuse the border. So it's this difference of like, oh no, we're hardening the border, but there's so much abuse happening.
Yeah.
Under the context or pretense of it's about border protection. We're
Right.
sending U.S. citizens or legal residents to prisons in a foreign to gulags. We've set up a gulag. We're outsourcing our gulags. So, and not that I don't. I'm everybody's very concerned. We're concerned about this sort of abandonment of due process. It looks like we've got a Supreme Court stamp of approval on that. What did you see in Greece in terms of the judiciary and the courts? Was there a corruption happening there? Were the far right going after judges? What did you see there? I don't know anything about it, so maybe nothing, but
what was really strange is towards the end of the trial, the prosecutor actually she recommended dropping the case.
Wow.
And I don't know the full story, and I don't think anybody knows the full story behind that. But in the end, the court didn't do that, and they were convicted. So the judicial system held up, and some of those folks are serving pretty long sentences now. But then 3 new far-right anti-immigrant parties entered the parliament in the last couple of years. So, it's never really just about one group or one place, like kind of like we mentioned. And, one thing I've thought about a lot, especially in the U.S. context, is that one thing I don't know how to fix the problem, but one thing I do know for sure is that you can't meet the far right halfway on issues like human rights and immigration. Like there's no negotiation on those things. Like it's just wrong to, snatch someone up and send them away, especially without giving them due process. And so I feel like there's like certain things like that you just have to stand firm on, and that everybody like in the country has to decide that these things matter. Because I kind of tried to make the point in the book that was similar when it comes to asylum, is like if you let a country chip away at someone's right to asylum, then you're also chipping away at your own right to asylum. Those laws don't exist just for one person or one group of people. They're for everyone. And maybe one day you or me or anyone else will have to walk across the border, and then we'll sure hope that we still can request asylum, for instance.
Right. That asylum as a concept needs to be protected.
Yeah.
We're at least 6 months away from having to do that. I think we're we're good. I want to read. This is a really again. I will stress it's a very, very good book. It's a dark topic. It is, but it's very, very well done. You make it so that you can read it without losing your mind, I guess is what I can say. Because you clearly care about the people and the stuff that you're talking about, and that comes through in the writing. This is from the epilogue of the book. And you write, by the time I finished this book, I had spent the better part of a decade reporting on migration in countries around the world, the far right, and the fight against it. I had come to understand a lesson that people on the receiving end of incitement and violence knew intrinsically. This is the important part, I think. Fascism cannot satiate itself targeting one group. Nationalists will never be satisfied by merely sealing off borders, as if that were even possible. There will always be a new enemy, a new demographic that must be confronted, fought, eradicated. When nationalists, xenophobes, and fascists speak of the harm they intend to inflict on refugees and migrants, they are also warning of their plans for anyone who doesn't fall in line with their vision of society. As vigilante violence and fascist conspiracy theories continue to find currency in Greece, now and then spiraling out of control, I was certain, knowledge that sank in like an anchor, that someone somewhere was already sharpening the knife. So that's really that's an excellent paragraph and a synopsis, and it gave me kind of, I was like, oh Jesus, this is it, because you summarize something that I think people know, but it goes with that whole like first they came for the trade unionist thing, but they are going to come for everybody eventually if they can, because the purity test gets more and more pure,
And once you have, okay, let's have the utopian for them of a society where everybody falls in line with their worldview, it's still not going to stop. Mm-hmm. They're going to abuse their women. They're going to abuse their children. They're going to abuse the planet. It's sadism, and there is no satiating it. It's just,
right.
It's a destructive force. It's a force to destroy, and an addiction, to inflict pain. It's just addicts. It's like saying, once we have all the heroin, let's have it all, right? You can't. It's So
I think you could see that really clearly in what's happened here with the rhetoric, like, oh, we're gonna deport criminals. Actually, we're also going to deport people whose speech harms our foreign policy, as if speech could harm foreign policy. And then it was like, we're looking into ways to maybe offload a few U.S. citizens also, and that's exactly what I was trying to get at. I think with that paragraph is that there is no stopping at one group. There's no stopping at criminals or one demographic of people or whatever.
No, because it's the sensation of inflicting pain and getting power through it that is what they want. This is what this is the addiction. So it's all you can't just stop. It's like me giving up coffee. It's never going to happen. It's just never going to happen. I gotta have it.
Which is a tariff with Colombia, though. I don't know. We got to get our
tariff. Oh,
I don't know
God,
where we're going to get our coffee grounds from.
No.
bad, you know. I- Starbucks is already $1 million a cup, you know.
I
So now
know.
it's going to be,
I refuse. I
yeah, I have to
refuse.
take out another. You have to refinance my house to get a latte. It's not good. It's not good. So, okay, again, your book is called "You Can Kill Each Other After I Leave: Refugees, Fascism, and Bloodshed in Greece." I think that. Do you want to stick around and talk about Elon Musk? Because I mean, you do look tired, and I know that you've.
I know. You're so jet lagged. I feel so bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. I'm really grateful.
Oh, we loved having you. This is
Yeah.
wonderful. You'll come back.
Yeah.
I'd be
You'll
glad
come
to.
back.
Yeah.
And we want to know how the book is done. And I know that we're promoting the book in here. Here it is.
Okay, here we go. Boom.
Oh,
we both did it at the same
we
time.
both did it at the same time.
Okay.
There we go. There's a link for everybody for buying the book.
All right. Thanks again, Patrick. Good to meet you.
It was a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Get some rest.
All right.
Oh, yay.
It's good. It's a really good book, you know.
It is a good, I mean, you've been sharing excerpts from me. I've just been reading his articles. His reporting is incredible. So a new friend of the show, and we're so grateful for all the work he did and that he came on tonight. And everybody go get that book. I do think it's, you know, he was saying, we having a talk before he came on. We were talking with him about, you know, how much of a laboratory was Greece. And the thing that he said that struck me that I think he repeated here live was, you know, yeah, it was early with this sort of new thing, but it's just kind of, there's so many Greases, you know, there's just so many places where.
He said he could write a book about conceivably any country almost that's in that. Yeah. Greece being interesting. And again, I knew nothing about this. Like I got, I don't know, I get pitches from publishers, you know, and it was, like, I don't know, for some reason, this book seems like it's so specific that it seemed important. And, So,
and if we go back through, there's a lot of Greece, and we forgot to ask him about Kimberly Griffile.
He didn't seem to know much about.
Yeah, he didn't seem to know much before. He's like, I don't really follow that. But there's a lot of Greece shit up in Donald Trump in that first term. A lot. If we sort of go back and look at characters and
Cyprus certainly too. Not that not the same thing. I get it.
Not the same thing, but
same part of the world.
Yeah, a lot of stuff. But that Andrew Anglin stuff just blew my mind. Oh God.
Yeah, no, me too. I couldn't take a picture of it and send it to you fast enough.
I know. It's like, it seemed like they were awfully ready for this migrant crisis that Russia was creating, frankly.
Yeah.
They're all Syria. They were all ready to go with their stuff. So, and of course that guy was there. All right, let's get into the next topic. I'm going to put the timer on.
Okay.
Here we go. All right.
Path of Exile, and it's actually Path of Exile 2, but the number 2 looked weird with all the other numbers, so I just put Path of Exile. Do you know what that is?
No.
That is.
Well, I mean, yes, but let me say no.
Okay. I know it.
I know the form. I know the form.
Yeah. It's the video game that Elon Musk really loves to play. And you know, to end the show, the last 2 topics, we want to bring joy and pleasure to the audience.
Yes.
And so Elon Musk this week, 2 very, very humiliating stories. In addition to, he lost like $40 billion of value with all this tariff bullshit, and the Tesla stock going down and everything else. So he's showing off Starlink on his plane, and he's in this, I guess, this video game thing where they talk in the game.
In his little,
13-year-old
control panel space.
And so what happens is people in there are just spamming the chat with all this really, really hateful stuff.
Gamers. Others gamers. Yeah.
Gamers directed at Musk, who, by the way, claimed to be one of the best people in the world at this game. And the gamers were like, no, you're not. That's just a lie. You suck, dude. So they don't like him anyway because he's a liar about that.
And he had other people doing it for him, playing it for him. Like they found all this.
He was paying
fuckery.
people. It was so
pathetic. Stupid.
all of the money he has. He can call Putin and Xi and Trump on the phone. He can talk to almost anybody in the world. And what he really wants to do is impress some 12-year-old, playing this game in the parents' basement, literally. That's who Musk wants to impress. And the payback is I'm gonna read some of these things that they were saying. First of all, they were creating handles in there that were Elon is a pedophile and Elon Musk is pathetic. These were all the, and then spamming the chat with these things. So he's looking at this screen of all of this stuff.
Yeah.
So here's just a couple of them. I'm your biggest fan. Please jerk off Mr. Trump so he dies of a heart attack. That was one. And you could, and he's filming. You could see him kind of like get upset.
He was like,
yep.
What's happening to me? Where's my love? I mean, because he assumes that the thing that is his little interest, and of course he's got Barron Trump as a super fan, that maybe this world loves him. No.
It does not. Okay.
It does not.
You ruined the country just like you ruined all your marriages. Mm-hmm. That's a good one. It's like a double-edged sword there. Here's another one. Elon, it's me, Ashley St. Clair. I have no other means of contacting you, so I bought PoE2 early access just for this. Please pay your child support. Thank you, Elon. I don't think it was really her, although...
No, but could have been.
Would be funny if it were. And the last two are my favorite. And I, somebody actually went online and said, bullying is always wrong, even if it's Musk. And I beg to differ. Because bullying is about power. You can't, by definition, bully somebody who's way more powerful than you.
Yeah.
So this isn't bullying. This is Elon trying to bully their little community and them fighting back. So I don't even consider this bullying at all. So the last two are, you have no friends and you will die alone.
My favorite. That's
a good one. And, oh, no, this one is my favorite. You will always feel insecure and it will never go away.
Yes, that was quite wonderful.
And you can watch him break.
You just watch him.
Yep. All of the other stuff that's been happening, all of the, these wonderful chunk animations and the songs that we've been doing and all of the protests and the this and the that, what breaks him is whoever wrote that. And it's probably some kid, who doesn't like him very much because. Yeah.
And you made the point earlier, who does love, he only has one person who loves
his mommy. His mom.
The only person who loves this guy is his mom.
It's a mayor, she'll weigh in. I'm surprised we didn't see her in there saying, leave my son alone.
Leave my son alone.
He's a nice boy. Leave him alone, please. Now.
Oh, God.
Now, and that's not the only thing, right? Because there's also the story in Rolling Stone. A magazine, like a big magazine, writes an entire story about how people in the White House can't stand him because he thinks he's funny and he's not funny.
Yeah.
And he tries so hard to make jokes and his jokes are terrible and he's really annoying and he's trying to get everybody to laugh and nobody laughs at him because he's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And he's so out of touch. And again, a news article written about, to have a news article written about how unfunny you are is pretty awful, I think. Especially when you're trying to be funny. That's
I've been calling these people artless for years and years now, but to repel the artless is quite a feat.
Yeah.
You have to really just be the stinky cheese. He's the stinky cheese. It's just like, it's so bad. You can't just go. So, and he's there with wallet. These people respond to bank accounts and they respond to cruelty. They love all of that stuff. And he's got more of that than anybody else, apparently. And still, it's so stinky that it's just, no.
The thing of it is, though, the stinky cheese sometimes tastes good. So it's not, I think it's like, I don't know.
Stinky toe cheese.
No, I think it's like the like the big cat turd You know,
Big fat
that I guess Cat Turret is already taken though.
turd.
You know, isn't that one of his buddies? Are
Poop
they
on
still
your
buddies?
shoe.
Are they
Poop
still
on your
tight?
shoe. Where is it coming from?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, he's horrible, and we can enjoy and delight in people telling him to his face how horrible he is.
You will always feel insecure, and it will
It
never
will
go
never
away.
go away.
Oh, you have no
will-
friends, and you will die alone.
You'll die alone.
Yeah, I remember reading an interview with him that somebody, I can't remember who it was, before all this. It's probably 10 years ago, and getting the sense that he was just empty, like desperate for love, and seemed incapable of, scratching that itch for whatever reason. Maybe that's chainsaw. He's trying to scratch the itch. Not working.
Not working.
Not working.
All right. Well, I don't want to talk about him anymore.
Now let's move on. Let's move on.
Okay. There was only a couple seconds left. All right. So we have announcements.
We have announcements, right?
We have announcements.
Yes. On Wednesday, this very Wednesday. Oh wait, I forgot to set up the logo thing here. Hold on.
Okay.
Bear with me. I think this is it. It's the 5, 8 1/2.
The 5, 8 1/2.
Our new show, hosted by Nadine Smith and Lisa Graves, who are both awesome, and
No, the best.
it debuts this very Wednesday, April 16th, the day after Patrick's book comes out. So this is a busy week, right?
It's a busy week.
And it's going to be great. I'm really looking forward to it. They've put a lot of work into it.
Yes, they have.
It's going to be fantastic, and I encourage everybody to tune in on Wednesday and watch. I know that's what I'm going to be doing.
That's what I'm going to be doing. I finally get to just sit back, and we'll be in the chat.
Yeah.
We'll be there. We cannot wait.
Mm-hmm.
So, yay!
Yeah,
Yay!
it's going to be good.
It's going to be good, and there's some chunk love for everybody. Unique to this show, that'll be its own thing.
Yep.
As we mentioned before, there's also Matt Fossa did a fantastic
It's really good
version of our theme songs just for them. So they have their own vibe going on. It's their own thing that they're creating, and it's a welcome extension and addition to this community. So we want everybody to tune in and show them the love, and you'll love it. I mean, it's just going to be a great show. It really is.
Edward, yes, it's on this channel. So you don't have to, if you have your notifications on, it will pop up. If you don't, it will be on our 5/8 YouTube page. It doesn't have its own page. It's all the same, it's all the same thing. So yes.
Yeah.
Good question. Thank you for reminding us.
Thank you.
Yeah. And we're not on it. We're just.
We're not on it unless they want us to come on. Yeah. We're not on it. We're just, we're just here to support and then to be super fans of them because we already were. That's why we were like, please do a show. Mm-hmm. Please do a show. Okay. And then you have another announcement.
I do have another announcement.
Yeah.
This week, it was yesterday, was the 100th anniversary of the publication of The Great Gatsby. So I have my Four Sticks Press put out an edition of The Great Gatsby for the centennial. And I wrote a foreword to it and an essay, and Ronlyn Domang and Diana Speckler, who are two great writer friends of mine. They also have essays in there. And did you see my hat?
I don't know if I saw your hat. Oh, yes, I did see this. Oh, yeah. That's great. We both went green today. So interesting. It's like we coordinated again.
I know we do. This is
what we
do. I know. Yeah. It's like a magical.
I love that green hat.
It's a magical thing. Well,
all right. So where can people get the book?
Green,
where can people get it?
You can get it. You get it on Amazon, or you can go to if you get actually go to my page today, and there's a link on my Substack that you can
on your Substack. I'm prevailing.
Buy it not from Amazon if you would prefer to do it.
Okay.
That way. So that's the announcement.
That's exciting. I love it. I love it when you put books out, and so this will be a fun one.
Yeah.
Okay. You want to go into our final topic?
I think we're going to go into the final topic. And it's funny. We had a production meeting this morning. We're talking about all this stuff. What are we going to talk about? And then at the very end, we're like, we have to talk about New York. We haven't.
Yeah, we were.
We just forgot, because it was the next morning that we went to the city.
Yeah.
So, and now, like I said at the intro, it feels like a month ago, but
I know.
no, it's not a month ago. It was here. So now I have a little thing that we'll show in a minute, but talk about your impression of the day. What were your takeaways from it?
Well, we went to the hands-off march,
Mhm.
and I know you were doing some shorts, so we did some live hits there, and had a friend we met up with there, and then ran into other people
Yep.
in the middle of this. It was huge. I don't know how many people were there, Greg. It was like easily 100,000 people showed up for New York City alone. So it was all what was it even down? I mean, it was Fifth Avenue, I think, and we
Went down Fifth Avenue. It was
went
Fifth
down Fifth
Avenue from
Avenue.
Bryant Park to Madison, which is 20 blocks, which is a mile. It's a mile.
It's a mile,
Yeah.
and we were cutting across and kept coming because I have a hard time in the crowd because it was so packed. It really was packed, and I know I'm not alone in all that. So, so we had a sort of our strategy, and we kept trying to get in front of this thing and get views where we could see how big and vast it was. I will say, the energy was incredible.
Mm-hmm.
It was, of course, nonviolent and peaceful. There was a very diminished police presence, which probably is why it was so peaceful, frankly, because people don't need to be policed when they're just, talking about. The police are there for traffic, and let us just talk about being peaceful and what we want from our government. So, the organizers I thought were really great. And so a couple of people had asked the police, and they were posting about this, like, God, there's not very much presence here. And they said, frankly, we had no idea it was going to be this big. Mm-hmm. So I do think the city it's not that they weren't prepared or they couldn't handle it. They just really didn't know. They completely underestimated how many people were going to show up. We rode the train down, and the car was full of people going to this from Hudson Valley. So is where we rode down from there. So a lot of people, really good vibe. Everybody skewing older. There weren't a lot of young people, and there weren't a lot of people with their kids.
Yeah.
I felt young. Did you feel young? I felt kind of young in that crowd. So these are the sort of older activists that are showing everybody how it's done. And they did it great. It was great.
I mean, one of the things with the cops, like, because the cross streets were open, many of them were.
Yeah.
So when the light changed, people would come out and they would hold hands kind of across so that people couldn't wander, so that the cars could go by. And then when the light changed again, they would stop, and then it would continue.
Yeah.
If there were more police there, the police would do that. But it was very well organized, I thought.
Yeah. Yeah. And the police were like, thank you. That's great.
My sense with stuff like that, like, especially if it's an extra thing, they're just happy to get the overtime. Honestly, they're just like, this is great. I'm getting overtime. I remember a couple of years ago, like right when I forget, it was outside of Trump Tower, and where they had to put the what do you call the metal things, the fence? What do you call those things?
Barriers,
barriers, and they're watching Trump, and nobody's doing anything. It's just, and they're like, oh, this is great. We get overtime. We're just sitting here, they're just happy. So that part was totally fine. There was a lot of really good signs. Weather cooperated. And, the thing about New York is that it's easy to get to, and it's easy to leave, and it's easy to disperse, and it's easy to gather. And that makes it a really good place to have a mass protest, unlike Washington, which is not easy.
Not that. Yeah. You can't get out. If you get in, there's no getting out. I do think also, I mean, we just really wanted to go.
Yeah.
But I was surprised at how much my spirit needed that.
Yeah. Yeah, it was good. It felt good to go.
Yeah.
Good to go.
And I think for sure now that, you just didn't see a lot of coverage of it. It was so huge, and it just got drowned out. But rest assured, it's going to get spicy now, because outside agitators are going to come in and try to, they always do, and do their thing with it. Right. So I just want to, hopefully the folks, I think this was an Indivisible thing mostly that helped organize it for Hands Off.
I believe so, yeah.
And I remember asking that New York, head of New York, individuals like, are you ready for the things to come in, like what happened with Occupy and what happened with all these things? If you're going to start organizing events, you're going to end up with these agitators and people who seek to spin it and turn it, and we'll have whatever the next made up Antifa thing is. So I don't have the sense that anyone's got a strategy for dealing with that. So maybe we should, that would be my one takeaway, is like, it's time to kind of come up with a game plan for that. Or if one exists and it is, I need to know about it. It's not something I've found. I would like, come on the show and tell us what your plan is for all the agitation that's going to come in as we keep rolling out these protests. Because I do think the protests are going to grow and grow and grow. I really do.
Should it be like, I guess, when I sat in the stands, in the bleachers section of Yankee Stadium, if somebody shows up wearing a Red Sox outfit on, what the people in the bleachers do is they just go, asshole, asshole.
Yeah, point at the person.
The entire game. Like, it doesn't ever stop until they leave. And I don't know if that's going to be an effective strategy, because I don't know. I don't know if the agitators are going to be obvious or not or whatever, but we'll see.
Well, they usually, when the far right show up into these things, they usually dress up as whatever, as if they're crazy leftists, and then they get the Fox News content that they want to get out of that. So I just think that, maybe there needs to be people who are specifically there with signs with the big arrow going, fake protester. And then the one thing that was covered in the news and covered in the conservative media was that we were all paid. We're all paid.
Right.
Everybody was paid to be there. Don't pay attention. These are all paid. And so I don't normally go on Twitter or X, whatever it is now, but I went on there. I'm like, you know what? If you really believe that we were all paid, then I invite you to come next time. Just come. So not that I'm trying to get agitators in, but just like, for, if it's like my neighbors or whatever, I'm like, you should just come and see whether you think we're all paid. I'm not paid.
The people who are paid are the people who go to the Trump rallies and wear the dumb T-shirts and stand.
Yeah.
Those are the people who actually are
projection.
Paid. Yeah, totally projection. So I spliced together.
Okay, let's watch.
Just some the audio, because it's a video and then there's still pictures. So whatever. Okay. But this is just kind of a little taste of what it was like there. In that last shot, you can really see up Fifth Avenue, and that goes for a while.
And that was, of course, Sandy Bacon, the great Sandy Bacon. Yeah. So we're out. We're like kind of had made our way to the front by crisscrossing on the side streets, and we're up there, and we hear this, Greg, Stephanie. And we turn around, and there's Sandy, like with her camera. She's like, oh my God. Out of all and we had even said before, it's like, I bet Sandy's going to be there. Should we reach out? Like, we'll never find her. Yeah. And then we ran right into her.
Mm-hmm.
So funny.
There she was. It was good to see her.
There she was.
Documenting the whole thing. And, as is her wont. So there didn't seem to be a ton of press there either, I have to say. I didn't see like news trucks or anything like that. Now that I think about it, it was pretty weak as far as that goes. But that's to be expected because,
That's to be expected. And we didn't see a lot of public people, Usually, hopefully, if you're in a big city, you've
Mhm.
got a lot of presence there of, folks that can, either have big Instagram accounts or, celebrities or actors or directors, something. There's a lot of professional artists and everything. And so that was another comment that folks have made is like, don't see a lot of public people here, which we need,
Yeah.
we need. So I don't know. Hopefully, if that many people can show up without any of those elements going on, then maybe once the word keeps spreading and people go, I would just go. And I know probably a lot of folks that are watching the show right now maybe found something local, went in your city, went in your town, went in your village. I did like, and there was stuff here for me, but I was going to be down with you anyway. And it was like, I want
Gotta
to
go.
go to the
Gotta go to
city.
New York.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
got to go to the city and sort of get that feeling. It was neat. So I also encourage a little bit of travel maybe for the next one for everybody.
Yeah.
If you can do it, if you can manage it.
I don't know. I felt like, being there among all those people made me feel like, I don't know, like
We're going to get through it.